All right, hello. So, right off the bat, I know the first thing people want to hear is about that little dirty tweet of mine that maybe a few people have seen, and we'll get to it. We'll get to it at the end. But first, I would like to speak with my friends about some stuff. This is not a drama podcast. We're not afraid to get into it, but we're gonna do things a little slowly. Dip your little toe in the cold water. You know. So I have with me today, I have my friend Abdullah, who you might know as Cody Houley, and we have the brother Mo, who is James Gray.
Yes, brother Mo.
Yeah, maybe some people don't actually know, but you really are brothers. But it's
Yeah.
that was not a fact early on, right?
No, I mean,
Mm.
contrary to popular belief, we are not alts. I'm sorry for a lot of the people that accused us when we were literally children, but it's fine. I understand why. Um, no, we are brothers. Yes, real life brothers.
But you acted exactly like alts, right? Like
Yeah.
if I had to write a match with Christina Krovac, I would message you, and I'd like
Mm.
almost frustrated. I'd be like, "Hey, can fucking Christina log in? Like we have to write the match." And then you'd be like, "Yeah, let me get her," and then you'd log off, and Christina would log in. It's at that point, it becomes a little suspicious, right?
Well, it
Yep.
gets
Would
it gets
say.
sticky when Mo logs into my Facebook and writes a promo or whatever. Like it tags a bunch of people. I think it
Listen,
was you and Lily.
Yeah, let's
we
elaborate
Oh
on
shared,
no,
that.
yeah,
yeah.
we shared a laptop, so we didn't have the luxury of having our own PCs. So there was a mistake here and there, but
A
sorry to burst the
couple.
bubble. We're not alts. We're not alts.
No, but they sound similar, so you're just gonna have
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
really, yeah,
yeah, we do.
distinguish between the two. But
The one with more emotions is me, and then Abdullah has no
Sure.
emotions. So.
Okay.
I
I'll take
there
it. It's
no
fine.
there's some emotion sometimes. I mean, maybe a lot of people don't also know that the infamous quack gesture actually came from a Snapchat from Abdullah. That's actually his voice saying the
Yeah.
quack. Maybe people don't realize it, but once you do, you can't unhear it because there's no
Yeah.
motion within the voice there.
Very true. It's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. But I know you have other animal sounds from me
I do.
locked up
I
somewhere.
do. I
Which
have a
will
vault.
never
I
go
have a
away.
vault, and the highly requested meow is still on my shelf. And one day we'll bring it out. But there needs to be a little
Right.
bit of time between the two, and we have Brett picking up a lot, right?
Yeah.
We
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's no longer your problem.
Thankfully.
So let's get into a little something here. I'm curious to ask, like, it's something we've talked about before, discussed, and you might have an answer already, but there's a line that's often referred to in Second Life.
Mm.
It's like some people take Second Life wrestling way fucking too seriously, and some people treat it like nothing at all. So there's arguments for both sides, and like I know people that argue on both sides. I'm curious to know like what you both think is like what is your side of this? How would you yourself like define that line? Like what's an acceptable amount of like seriousness in Second Life wrestling or Second Life in general? And like what would you say you've seen that's like too much?
I'll go ahead and start here and just
Yeah.
say that I feel like we all play this as a game and we're all here to have fun. So I think the line is there is no line until it gets personal to the person behind the computer. In a sense where you attack their real life or whatever it is outside of the character that's in Second Life. I don't believe there is a line because you do have two or three of us that are controversial here or done controversial things that could be crossing the line.
Just say
But it's
names.
always like no, the three of us here, like in this conversation, like for example, Christina Krovac and Chloe Valentine. There was a controversial thing with that storyline where Christina would make fun of Chloe's dead mom, but that was
Right.
all in character. And Abdullah calling himself God, that people took offense to that. And then your tweet, which we're gonna delve into later, that's all in character stuff. So I think when it's the line for me personally, and should be for everyone really, is is when it doesn't go too personal in the sense where you're making fun of the person behind the computer or you're trying to take digs on
Right.
someone not based on the character, like
Right.
unwarranted.
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted about this too, like recently about the taking it seriously. And I think where like my view on like the line of crossing between taking it SL too seriously, I think in terms of like where people, and I'm not here to judge anyone's real life or whatever, you know, how they seriously they take it, which I mean, everyone should really take their real life seriously, but I'm not here to judge what people do in their real lives. But when this world starts like, oh, you get upset because, and again, we've all been there. I've been there. In the point where like I'd get upset. Someone joins the Fed and it's like he gets a push before me or whatever, and you go on Facebook and write your little rant about it or whatever, like, and it affects you in real life. When you close a computer, you walk away, and it still has that lingering whatever. I think that's where, at least in VWE, where we are at now, I think we've done a good job in where like everyone is, you know, everyone's comfortable. Like the word community, I feel like is so like overused, and like when everyone is trying to force each other to get along, when you know, if you can't get along with everybody, but if you're trying to force it, there's always going to be like backlash. So I think now we're at a point where like everyone is doing their own thing in their own feds, and it's like everyone is kind of a bit distant, but it kind of works. And like I I don't really focus on what other people are doing much, and because I don't take this world too seriously, and I don't
Yeah.
like I take my matches seriously and what I do seriously on a Friday, but like I'm not gonna be upset if my opponent can't make like we're gonna work on a match and oh he has to go, I don't know, take his kid to school or whatever. And I'm like, oh, you should be here instead and working this match. Like it's not that deep. And I think people cross that line. Like I've faced people that like my grandfather died in real life and they were telling me that I had to be there in the match right. I'm like, I don't give a shit about
Yeah.
a match right or Second Life Wrestling. So there's definitely a line in that aspect
Yeah.
of wrestling. But yeah.
Yeah, like through that, there's one thing that you mentioned, like we're doing your own thing. I think now more than ever, I see less people from other feds in the crowd and more people from
Yeah.
other places, which is cool. My
Yeah.
personal belief on that is like real life should always exclusively come first. Like that should not be a surprise, but weirdly enough, it's a surprise to some people. You should not take Second Life Wrestling so seriously that you treat other people like shit, or you act like a diva when like a match result doesn't go your way, or like, or you just don't get your way in general and act like a child. Like it's too much. Like get over it. Like, but what I will say is, if you are putting an effort, like if you're constantly putting an effort to advertise your show and you have fans showing up, one like little thing that I always share with people is like you are now suddenly dealing with people that are spending their time to come watch your show, and like time ultimately, regardless of it being Second Life or not, time is like a valuable currency, and that should not be taken like as lightly as some people take it. If there are even 5 people at your show watching it from start to finish, that's enough for me personally as a person to decide, okay, I'm going to try to do something that's like fun to watch. Like I'm going to put a little care into it. And I
Yeah.
just don't see that, always. It's like maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, there's also like again, like taking it seriously in terms of like, yeah, like I said, I take my matches seriously, and like when I'm working with someone, I'm aware of the fact that we're both spending our time, whether it's an hour or two working on this match, we're taking out of whatever else we could be doing, taking out of our real life. None of us are getting paid,
Yeah.
and we're working on the match together to, to do it. And like, if the other person is showing a lack of there is some level of seriousness you need to take it. Like you can't just like
Yeah, you're dealing with people's
have the other
time.
person. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You can't just like let them do all the work and just
Yeah.
like if there's no like valid reason and you're just lazy,
Yeah.
then I'll have an issue and I'll bring it up with you directly.
Yeah,
But
yeah, 100%.
yeah,
Like, people know I'm infamous for spending like a lot of time to prepare for matches, like between like
yeah,
countless hours of animating. And the bottom line is like it's spare time for me and like it's fun. Like I work full time. I have a social life. Like I'm not here to waste away in Second Life. And trust me, when you are on your fucking deathbed, you are not going to be groaning out some words like I was a former VWE World Champion. Like you're really truly not, because no one cares. Do you know what I mean? No one
Yeah.
cares when you log off. Like it truly does not matter. What matters is how you're going to treat people like around you. Because one day it truly it's not going to matter. at all. So what's going to matter is like how people remember you as a person, like based on your interactions, and like and that's the bottom line really with that.
Yeah, 100% agreed.
You maybe Abdullah more in specific. I know Mo, you like weren't as like all over the place, but Abdullah, you were around the grid like kind of all over the place. You were at VWE, Fusion, Rogue, DIE. Like maybe I'm missing some, but of
No,
course
those are it.
Mo spent his fair share of time. But how would you say that your experience differs being like in another Fed back then, or even like a couple years ago, to like what you're doing now? And be honest, I am curious to know like what
Yeah.
you both have enjoyed the most and what you have not enjoyed at all or the least.
Yeah, it's almost even like if you just compare VW now to what it was before. Like I look at that also as like separate feds that I've worked in. Honestly, it's like
Yeah.
now I don't like. There's no. I don't feel the weight or pressure. Like I think I'm sure we'll get on to like the past VW whatever. So maybe I'll just focus on the other feds that you mentioned. I had a good time in like Rogue and Fusion and DIE like for what it was, but I've always felt like I don't know about you guys, but being in VW majority of like the 13 years we've been doing this, like there's always been this like where people look at VW a bit differently. It's almost like the cool thing to hate VW or like hate the
Yeah.
people in VW.
Do you
So
think sometimes
I've
people
always
think we're snobs? Because I get that
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, a lot of the times, yeah. And I remember like some of the places I've gone to, and it's like I've never 100% felt comfortable. It's always just I always felt like people were looking at me in a different way, or like
Yeah.
when I'd come back from a match, like I'd done a match, and then I'd come back to the call, it would just be like, whatever, silent, and then like the other match comes back and no shade, whatever, but like it wasn't better than my match,
Yeah.
and they'd come back and everyone losing their shit because they're like they're guys, they've
Yeah.
been there the whole time.
Yeah.
Just I stepped in for a storyline or two, and maybe okay, I got the world title storyline right away, and again, it shouldn't really matter. It's just a part of a
Yeah.
story, and I've helped the world champion, progress his whatever his reign,
Hmm.
and it just there always felt like people are like looking at me differently,
Yeah.
and that's why I've never lasted too long in those places, and I'll just leave. I never feel comfortable as I do in VWE normally, but yeah, I think it's an interesting topic and
Yeah.
like experience going to places like that, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how Mo feels about this because Mo, for us, it's a little different because we both
Yeah.
used to kind of play on like the female avatars, and we did
Yeah.
Hawks and that sort of stuff, and like VWE was always sort of there. We didn't have the
Yeah.
experience of being like, okay, VW exclusive for so long, and like
Yeah.
now you're branching out to other feds. We were kind of just always doing something.
Yeah.
So for you, like, how did you feel that differed from like his experience?
I feel like obviously starting off as Christina, I felt like there, especially the women's division in most feds wasn't always up there. And that's the truth. Like the focus was always on the men's division, and the men used to get most of the stuff. And then I remember Hawks being there around that time when I started, and I thought I would join there just to focus Christina a bit more. Um, and being there for the time it was, and back then, I feel like it was good for the women's division in all feds because I feel like I've worked with most of the people in Second Life Wrestling, at least in the start,
Yeah.
and worked with the big names, and then that's where Christina and Lily had their the Hell in a Cell match that was like way ahead of its time for that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that was something else. But then a little inside scoop for you all that no one knows, and I don't think most people know because only the owners of that Fed knew. But there was a time where, as playing Christina and being in the VWE, there was the whole exclusive deal, and you couldn't. And there was something, and everyone knows this. I'm pretty sure that if you were to work in other Feds, you were told that you will not get the same opportunities as others just because you work in other Feds.
Yeah.
So I had to make an alt. So I did have an alt. I was an alt at one point. I had a completely different character. Um, I don't think anyone would remember her. Her name was Kimberly Linata, and it was for a Fed called. Oh my god, this is gonna be so embarrassing. Apologies to the Fed, but I think it was called ACW for a little while.
I think I remember. I
Um,
think I remember
yeah,
ACW. Yeah,
it was Jack Citron and Kristen Airy
yeah,
Lauren. They had run that Fed, and we were friends back then. And they said they were opening up a Fed, and I said I'd join there, and then they put the world title on me, the women's world title on Kimberly Lanata, and it was fun for that time because I felt like I was doing something different, and
yeah,
VWE started feeling mundane because of that said rule that you
yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
wrestle anywhere.
There were a lot of
Um,
restrictions,
there
and so
were,
there
yeah,
still to this day you see them sometimes. But back then it was like you had to sign a fucking no card, like that you were not going
yeah,
to wrestle somewhere else, and that's what kind of drove some people away. Back then, like
yeah,
wrestling a few times a week, it was popular. Like I did it, and a lot of us did it. But
hmm,
now it's not the same.
yeah,
But in terms of all of that, and the way matches worked back then, it's obviously vastly different, and we all know that. And I have to say that
Yeah.
my personal favorite match that I've gotten to watch in SL was actually the ladder match that you guys did with the Carsons at Wrestle Series 13. Because when I
Yeah.
watched it, it actually felt like for the first time I'd seen in Second Life, next to King of the Arena that you guys did that year as well.
Yeah.
And also, I really loved that triple threat match between Danny and Betty and Tracy at Wrestle Series 14. It's just that match though. It's like all around, like in my history of being around, a match like that had never been done it's so technically advanced. Um, I don't think anyone else in the community that could say that they pulled something like that off. And before you say like, oh yeah, I had a great ladder match, like that's great. It's fantastic. It's just it's not a dig at anybody. This is subjective. It's opinion, and despite how good the writing was, it's not about the card. It's not about like the moves you did. It is just completely
yeah,
for the fact that up until that point, the use of scripts and like building had not been integrated in a match in this way before. Like it was so extremely fluid. You basically at that point got rid of the old fashioned way of using props where you have to like, all right, guys, it's laggy. Let's go into the inventory and we're gonna attach,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be a couple
yeah,
minutes before it attaches, or you grab the ladder, you res it, and it reses in the fucking corner of the ring where you didn't aim for, and so you have to right click and
Yeah.
edit, and there was none of that. It was like it was completely like bam bam bam, like here's completely set up exactly how you needed it. So for the both of you, what would you say sort of cracked the code of being like fuck the normal way of putting something like this together, and you pulled it off. So I'm just curious what your thoughts were going into something like that.
I'll make it short of mine just because I mean the majority of all the like cool stuff and like how fluid it looked was 100%, 1,000,000,000% Mo. I was just there literally, but it I think it was interesting because like going into a ladder match, I think almost from the King of the Arena match we did with all five or six of us. I think that kind of changed the outlook on a ladder match because ladder matches used to be like this boogeyman match that no one really wanted to do because it always looked messy. No matter, and no one's fault and no one's lack of skill or lack of trying or whatever. It's just there were limitations of what people thought they could do in SL wrestling when it comes to ladder matches, and like the change, you guys using the scripts and all of that, it completely changed my outlook on ladder. I remember the first time I left, not the first time I left VWE, but when I left VWE after I can't remember what year it was, but we did a King of the Arena ladder match. And all right, we did a King of the Arena ladder match, and the I quit after that because it was a fucking nightmare, to be honest, and because trying to get people to get together and all that, but then the match itself was just a nightmare to write and work through. And then fast forward to the last King of the Arena we did with that match, that completely changed my outlook just because of how easy it was because of the scripts, because of Mo's work and all
Yeah,
of that. It completely changed my outlook. Now I look forward if I see a ladder match, Like I'd be excited to be in a ladder match now,
Yeah.
rather than before. I'd fucking hate my life. I'd want to leave if
No,
I
you
was in a
guys
ladder match.
fucking scared us actually away from doing ladder matches from that point. So that's why King of the Arena changed from ladder match format to Ultimate X, because I was literally like, I don't care what you say or what anyone says. Like you, that match, like it could not be topped in the way that they, pulled it off with the
Yeah.
scripts. And Mo, like that's the first time that you tried it at King of the Arena, obviously,
Yeah.
and so then you kind of took the initiative to try it a little bit more, and then you were obviously successful.
Yeah.
But back
I
then there was
think
nothing like that, right? And you
no,
weren't trying
nothing.
shit like that back then either. So
No. Yeah. So this all started when I started building. So I started meshing and then later on scripting, thanks to Mikey's help, co-owner of Fight. The scripting came a bit after I started meshing because I started meshing based on necessity and wanting to learn, really. I've always wanted to learn how to 3D model and all that. But then I actually got to it when I wanted to do it on my own terms. And starting to mesh, then moved on to scripting with the help of Mikey and teaching me the ropes. That opened a lot of doors because for me personally, I'm a perfectionist. I have OCD. I like things to be perfect and very meticulous in the way things move and how they look, especially in a virtual world. I want it to be as realistic for as an experience, not only for myself, but for the people watching. Because at the end of the day, we are doing this for fun, but at the same time, people are watching. People are taking time out of
yeah,
their day to come and watch this and to be entertained. Like that's the main goal
yeah.
of all this
And if there are
is
new
to watch.
ways to emulate like a real wrestling experience, like of course
Exactly.
we should be trying them. And
Yeah.
you and I kind of grew side by side in that, because that's the
Yeah.
reason why I started animating, was because I was
Hmm.
kind of tired of there not being enough for me to like pull off something as realistic as I wanted due to my own
Yeah.
OCD. And it brings me to a good point. Like advancements in Second Life Wrestling are few and far between, right? And
Hmm.
like that sort of line here kind of crossed on Twitter today. I don't know if any of you saw this. And this is maybe like a drama subject, okay? But at the
Nice.
same time, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
respectfully, there was a tweet sent out by someone, I guess, from Premiere. I'm really not familiar with them. I know, Abdullah, you said you worked with them recently, and they were, fine to work with, which is, great. Like, I'm not, coming to attack anyone personally. It was just this tweet. Let me explain why I felt like it was a little negatively charged. It was something about like, I'll put it up on the screen, but it was like, in 2 years we graduated 47 people from 200 plus applying rookies. We worked hard. Stop poaching our talent. Have respect. And it felt like really there obviously people, it ruffled people's feathers, one of them being Viola, and I can see why. Truly, this is no hate to Premiere, but we have a history of someone from Premiere coming into VWE to try to poach talent back when poaching talent was like a bad thing, or something that was like completely off limits, because the line of poaching now, like if you really think you own your talent that much that you can, they can be poached, it's really weird. But at the
Yep.
same time, yeah, it back then it was a thing. And so I know people from Premiere were banned at our sim, and of course we had someone from Premiere in our fed who kind of confirmed this suspicion. And not suspicion, we knew what happened. And after that, it was sort of like, there are, if you look at Premier roster, sometimes you see similarities, and no hate, but it's like,
Yeah.
someone came to Mo for, with his brand Fight, to try to buy like
Yeah.
my custom skateboard that I had for my gimmick, for their skater gimmick. There's weird lines like that, and that's why I think that tweet rubbed people the wrong way. It's because you're saying, have respect, like, here we are, we've trained 47 people, and stop poaching our talent. It's like you're kind of telling people to do something that you yourself have done in the past. And I can't say that we've it wasn't directed at us, because we've never poached talent, but it just seemed that tweet seemed Do you agree or disagree with me that it felt like there was some ego behind the tweet and it wasn't made for like a reason that he's claiming that it was made?
Yeah, it's again, yeah. Danny, I didn't work with him. He was in the same event, the Rogue Hall event I just did. He worked with Henry, but he was in the call and we like chatted, and it was like a pleasant, nice guy. Nothing against him. I don't, dislike him or anything. But it's a bit. It threw me off because, yeah, I mean, let's be real. Premiere had the stigma of like, I've always said it's the amount they used to try poaching a lot of people and they contact people through their Premiere talent agent alt.
I've been personally.
Yeah, yeah, same. And like it's again, it's an interesting like two-way thing because it's like it's not anymore like we don't have those contracts where it says we're exclusive. So poaching for me isn't really a thing because you can just have a chat with someone and ask them like, oh, do you want to join our Fed? But like, I get why people see that like bad taste, whatever. But again, that's like a whole other point. But coming from someone in Premiere, it's a bit
It's funky.
hypocritical. Yeah, it's a like I would always say I'd respect the shamelessness that they have
Yeah.
because they would unapologetically do it, and it's fine, whatever. That's their thing if they wanted to. But
There's
the
controversy
tweet
with the
has
trickster and the trickster gimmicks, and
oh,
it's not
there's a
just
Danny
that.
one.
There's
There's
like there's this and that and this and that. But the thing is, nobody's really giving that much of a shit. You know what I mean? So for it to
yeah,
come from them, it's kind of it's weird. Uh, I agree.
yeah, and also the other part of the tweet of like we've trained 47 people or whatever. It sounds
Define
like a flashy
trained.
big number. Yeah, it's a flashy big number, whatever. Like we don't have that many trained people, but I think
No.
there's limits of like, oh, all right, you can hit a rope shoot, get out there, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
there's a bit
there's
of difference
different
of like
quality
how people train.
standards. It's like
Yeah,
honestly for me, we have not like we've trained people and 47 people have certainly not passed what our standard requires, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like those the elements of training did not start with Premiere.
Yeah.
They start farther back than even VWE, but I mean like as far as advancements in training, double rope shooting, that stuff came from VWE. I'm just gonna say it did,
Mhm.
but no one's trying to say we own that, you know what I mean? So I just when you're saying like, oh yeah, we graduated 47 people, it's like, well, define trained and define graduated because for us that might not be the same meaning.
Yeah.
yeah,
But truly, no hate to this guy. Like the
100%.
reaction or the interaction we had at the end was respectful and like, yeah, I'm sure he's a nice guy. It the tweet came across weird to me. I didn't want it to make it about drama. I wanted to be respectful, but yeah, it was if you have any more thoughts, you can elaborate. But I think that kind of you know,
yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we covered
Poaching
it.
is a yeah. The term poaching, anyway, it's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it really has any
In this
weight.
day and age, yeah,
Yeah,
in this time, I feel like everyone's free to do whatever they
yeah.
want. No Fed should really be exclusive because at the end of the day, that person's doing it with their own free time, and they can go wherever they want,
If
and
you yeah
it's their character at the end of the day, so they could treat it however they want. If they want to fuck it up and go to like 7 different Feds and burn out real quick, they can. It's their own fault. You're not gonna be losing someone forever because there
right
are thousands of us in this game, millions, if anything, in this game, and you get new ones. So
yeah
it's not like
and
one
it
person.
brings me back to the status that maybe sometimes people think people in VW are snobs. And like I don't know how to defend that statement. You know what I mean? But all I can say is like if you joined VWE, you'd be surprised by how completely relaxed we are.
yeah,
Yeah,
The only thing
yeah,
we require is like we're strict on match time limits and we're strict on quality.
yeah,
And like other like there's no exclusivity, there's no if you're here holding a title you can't hold a title there. We don't restrict people, we truly
yeah,
like we're there to have fun, especially after the events of Seth Cameron leaving. VWE before
yeah,
then was like a very toxic environment, as most people would say.
100%,
yeah,
And
100%.
I think that one of VWE's like most fatal errors, I believe, was let's say a good portion between 2019 and 2021. And
yeah,
it was the idea was to completely operate VWE like a business. And so by the time Wrestle Series 12 came around, the only fucking thing people cared about was getting sponsors. And like, here's the thing, sponsors are not bad, but it was all about sponsors. It was all about clout. It was all about numbers. Even like the home sim for VWE was completely fucking taken over by other projects to the point where the sim was so laggy that we could not put on a wrestling show. You know what I mean? There
Yep.
was so many scripts for things that were being designed for the sim that were not revolving around wrestling, and that all, you know, it comes from sponsors and clout and whatever. But the heart of the people at VWE, we just wanted to put on a wrestling show. So it almost wasn't about wrestling anymore because everybody would like so fucking badly that we couldn't, you know, put on a fucking match. And the problem was, you know what happened when we brought this up. You know what I mean? You guys,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure, remember what happened when we brought concerns like that up. It's like, I guess I'll go fuck myself. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll take the whole
Yeah.
sim down. It was always like a big ordeal, and we're just like, please, ma'am, can you just disable the scripts for the public? You know what I mean? That's all we fucking wanted. It wasn't like we
Yeah.
wanted a new sim. Um, Fast forward to January 2022, where everything changed because suddenly we could just make it exclusively about wrestling. You know, we were so
Mhm.
fucking output from sponsors at that point that we were basically like, fuck the idea of needing to strain ourselves to get high audience numbers, because it was at the point where we were doing fucking Linden giveaways to people who stayed during the show. It was like you were pulling people in for the wrong
Yeah.
reasons. So where do you think, like, in that time span that VWE was going wrong, and how would you compare it to what we do today? And I mean this to everybody like listening. Like, obviously, we're going to talk highly about VWE because we worked very hard on it. So I'm just curious
Yeah.
to ask them, like, if what they're most proud of, like right now, you know, compared to back then, where I just described everything that I did,
Yeah.
and to what you're doing today. Like, I just curious what your general thoughts are.
For me personally, I feel like back then, because I've been in the VWE, like you said, for so long. I mean, I've been in the start with different management, different people running it, and I've been through it all. But I can confidently say that during this change, when it was taken over, and we had that change post 2019 to 2022, when we took it over in 2022 and kind of changed it. It sounds cheesy to say, but when the VWE logo changed from highlighting the E in a different color, or the V, I forgot which one it is now. But when the W changed to a different color, wrestling, when that became the focus, I think it became the most fun I've ever had. Because before, it always felt like there were times where it was fun, of course. I'm not going to say that. But there, most of the time, I can confidently say that it felt like a job, and it felt like I had to be there. Like Abdullah said in the beginning, that whole thing about the grandfather, our grandfather passing away, and them telling him to be here. It was in VWE, right, Abdullah?
Yep.
Yeah. So that did make it feel like a job, and then the whole sponsorship thing and wanting sponsors and all that. Because to be honest, at the end of the day, these sponsors, no shade to them, and it's obviously great to have sponsors, but they wouldn't really care about what we
They
do.
weren't interested in the
Uh,
product.
yeah, exactly. Like they just want the clout. They just want the. Some people do want to help. I'm not saying that like every sponsor is bad, but at the end of the day, for us personally, it wouldn't really boost our marketing, or like we've had no sponsors this entire time since 2022, and yet we've had the most the biggest crowds every single week. We hold 70 plus people on weekly shows, which is
Yeah,
I've never seen that in my entire 13 years here. And then free previews go up to like 90, and then the
yeah,
sim gets capped and stuff, you know? So,
yeah. And what I think is really cool about that is that when we decided to keep VWE going, I mean, when I say, I'm not going to talk about this right now, or maybe I will another time, but when I tell you the hell that we were put through during the transition of ownership to VWE,
oh,
we
yeah.
were put through the ringer, and I don't mean that lightly. Me especially, okay, put through the fucking
Yeah.
ringer. And so I'm telling you, we had decided to shut down. We were like, we're just going to close it. And then I don't know what
Yep. That
happened
was
last
the
second.
decision.
Yeah, it was the official decision. I don't know what happened
Yeah.
last second where we were like, let's keep it going. We were like, I don't care if the 20 people show up or 20 people are on the sim or 30
Yeah.
people are on the sim. We're just gonna, have fun doing our shit. And then I think it kind of all surprised us when like we were getting more people coming to see the show than when we were dealing with all these sponsors and dealing with like this and that.
Hmm.
We were kind of surprised. And uh
And by the way, not people like other feds, because again, there's something with VWE where people have this thing against people in VWE. We don't get many people from other feds coming to watch our shows like
Yeah.
other feds do, because
Yeah,
they're
that
all like
70 that
intertwined.
I mentioned is not like not majority of other feds. It's like
No, because they
random
don't.
people that we
People
don't
don't like,
see.
whether it's a furry community. Again, I'm not throwing shade, but like they don't come to watch us unless they have a friend there. Then they'll come for that match and leave. But we don't get people from other feds coming to our
yeah,
shows anymore.
and
We
that's
have
no
people
shade. That's like
at all. No.
none at all. It's just like it goes to show if you're willing to just have fun and not really worry about the politics, like it does help.
Yeah. Uh, I think I also like when you talk about like, you guys decided to shut it down and then decided not to. I think that talking about the difference from 2019 and to 2021, that period, not like we didn't have fun, not like I didn't have fun with the storylines with you, Morgan, and Knight and whatever. All like we did some cool stuff back then, but it was always like now how we do it is like we'll have fun on the Friday, we'll do the shows and we'll work on it, one day before the show or whatever, write our match and set it up. And then but like the rest of the week is like completely like stress free, not thinking
Yeah,
about anything
you
else.
don't think about
Before it
shit.
was before it was like you're done with your match, but you have a million other things to do and a million other things to please people to please and like sponsors and when the got to a point where stuff was happening on the show to please a sponsor, and it's like
Yeah,
that it shouldn't be like that. And I remember when during that period when I literally remember it being said by Seth and the rest of them, they wanted VWE to be like self-run, like funded through the profit, like make profit in VWE, which
yeah,
sounds great and it's like a great oh, it's like this La La Land whatever thing you want, but in order to do that, like you have a lot of stores in SL where the store owners, it's their living, that's what they do. But to get to that point, they put so much time and effort to get to that point, to get to like a point where even you just break even, but then we want to make profit in VW. Everyone has to put like 10 times more effort and take so much time from their real life just to
yeah,
make that a possibility. And no one wanted to do that. Like we set up a hotel to get people to rent just so we could make money, and then like the other like ways Seth and them were making money, like it it sucked all the fun out of like, because we had
yeah,
great times with like the matches we've done, like me and you, Morgan, and like it was great on the Friday when we do the show and like we'd have fun doing that.
yeah.
But then the focus on business and all of
You
that shit
had to
just sucks the
move.
life out
You
of
had to
you.
move through a mountain of shit to get to like the fun. And the
Literally.
problem was the fun was it was pretty self-directed. At least I can tell in our case because we used
Oh
to,
yeah.
we're pitching our storylines, we're pitching this, we're pitching that. It's like,
Yeah.
but and the focus was always just on like, okay, I had money. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's why like VW became more successful after the fact, even though people you're not supposed to. Sam fucking Luciano like, well, Seth is gone now. You're not gonna fucking you're gonna move to a
Yeah.
quarter sim.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
shut the
Don't get me
fuck up,
started on
Sam
him.
Luciano. Like, eat my fucking ass, dude. Like, you literally know nothing. But besides the fact, that's how it went. Like, the goal for everybody, we were like, I don't want any stress. I just want to have fun. So we were just
Yeah.
like, we're just gonna put these shows on. They're a passion project at this point. If 20 people show up to the sim, what the fuck ever. We're wanting to put on,
Yeah.
a wrestling show that we have fun putting together,
Yeah.
not worrying about like all of the stress that comes with it. Because I think a lot of us that are here, like we know how to take Second Life like not too seriously, but
Yeah.
enough to the point where we can put on a good show. But
Yeah.
and there's never a moment where it's like, oh yeah, you need to be here. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's not that whatsoever. And
And I feel like the feeling of family was never there, to be
it
honest.
was fake, you know.
Yeah. I
Like
feel like this part that we're in now, I feel like I can confidently say that we're all such a tight knit family in the VWE right now that not to say that anyone coming from the outside won't be welcome. If anything, we welcome everyone. Like even the newer people who have just joined, they feel like they've never been a part of it. I've gotten messages and IMs from the newcomers that have come to the VWE now and been like, "Oh my god, like this is so fun," and it'd be like, "Yeah, exactly. Like we're not taking anything too seriously." And hats off to Mikey and Danny for that first part when they did the fast build and through the transition.
It was
That
tough.
was
It was
crazy.
fucking tough. Yeah.
Yeah. But like to do that in such a short time because they wanted to help just brought everyone so much closer together. And I feel like from
Yeah.
that point onwards, it was so easy to like come to each other and talk to each other and just ask for help, you know, which was never the case before. I feel like
Yeah.
it was always like a hush hush rule, don't speak to this person, or like
Yeah.
if you speak to this person you get shit talked, or
That's
but
exactly why
yeah.
I think VWE like is in the where it is at this moment. It's because it's not. Do you remember? Do you guys remember when I was put on Virtual Secrets? That I'll put it
Oh
on the screen. The
god.
dictator. I
Yeah.
fucking I fucking love that picture. First of all,
Yeah.
thank you for the beautiful edit. You know who you are, but what's so funny about it? It's completely opposite. It's like everything is decided as a group. It's okay. Like you might see mine and Viola's name, you know, on the sim ownership and whatnot, but it's literally all we don't do anything besides pay the rent, being
Yeah.
responsible paying the rent. Everyone decides what we do as a group, as a story. There's not one person being like, this is how it's going to go, and that's the only way it's going to go. And that's what I think works right now for us.
You see the biggest example of people coming into like people like Henry and Rex, K-Pow, whatever, or like Dylan, like people that I speak on Henry's. I don't want to speak on Henry's behalf, but I could safely say he didn't want to join
Yeah,
prior to this like change. Now, like he would tell you too, or like K-Pow would tell you too, like the feeling within VWE is so different. Like it doesn't feel like a job, and there's so much like transparency in what everyone's doing. Like if you're not booking someone for a reason, you have no problem going to tell them why and this is the reasons and blah blah. And like before, it'll just be like there'll be a separate call where everyone gets shit talked or whatever, and
yeah.
like it
I'm
gets
not
slowly,
jobbing someone
shunned
because
out.
they killed me in a game. You know what I mean? Which has happened. But
Yeah,
you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
yeah.
It's it's a collective effort, and without every moving piece, which without every person, like we wouldn't be able to do it. Like I am not VWE, like VWE is VWE, and you know we all come together, and that's what makes it work. And I think that's where like that's when I say community, I usually just mean like us as a community,
Yeah.
VWE as a community, because the problem is like there are a lot of times where I really cannot support what happens outside of the VW community. And the thing is I really do like to go check out other shows when I can. I really like I don't have a lot of time. Like I work a full-time job. I have hobbies, you know. I just want to go out. I want to skate. You know what I mean? I don't want to
Yeah.
just be on SL.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to community, take of it what you will. But you guys can sometimes make it very hard to support the outside community. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I'm gonna talk about this tweet now. I'm gonna put it up on the screen. If you're watching on the YouTube, this will be time stamped, and you'll be able to also see images. So if you want to watch on YouTube for a different experience, you know, for some images to the voice, go for it. All right, so before I really dig into this subject, I'd like to clarify that this is not petty drama and this is not an opinion. Okay? I'm going to speak to you only about the facts that I know. Between the months of July 2021 and December 2021, there were a couple of auctions held that were sponsored by MJ Animations, Wildfire, and Fight. By the way, this is the auction indeed where the you know the infamous first person to face Morgan Jones in 2022, which by the way sold to Jeffrey Fireguard, fucking simp, for I believe 20,000 lindens, which is ridiculous. And I, of course, I saw none of those lindens, by the way. Not that it matters, which I thought was, maybe for VWE, for the sim. It's just who does that shit and not really, ask someone. Like, I was basically like a chess piece in that, but I digress. One of the items in one of these auctions, I believe it was the Wrestle Series auction, this item was to be created by Seth Cameron for the person who purchased it, and the closing bid was 50,000 lindens to Dante, the owner of UFW. This custom title belt was not only never created for Dante, but his money was also never refunded. In fact, I have a screenshot from Seth after he'd left VWE telling me that Dante had already tried reaching out to him about the money. So it's clear that Seth has never paid Dante the money back for this item, and he was never going to entertain the idea of even creating it in the first place. If you can't provide the product, please give him a refund, okay? I spoke with Dante recently, and he told me that he had still never received this refund. I wanted to confirm, and he was simply blocked by those he tried to contact about it. It actually got to a point where I wish I had a screenshot of this, maybe with some like deeper digging. I'll find it because, Gyazo Pro and whatnot. But Seth ended up putting in his profile, for any auction items to be delivered, contact Morgan Jones, which, if you know the whole fucking story about all of the missing money from the VWE reserve that was meant to pay the sim tier, you would know that we were left with maybe 25k and 5 days left on the tier, on a tier that cost 68,000 lindens. Yeah. It's pretty fucked up to scam someone out of their money, but then to try to make someone else responsible for it. 50,000 lindens is approximately $200 if you're, interested in the conversion. It's real life fucking money. And here's the thing, a lot of people, they know this story. This is not new information. That's what's so fucking funny about this is not new information. This is information I have brought to people, okay? This proof is not new. And I promised I would only speak on what I knew as a fact and not speculation or opinion. Because if I were to speak on opinion, my opinion were to be that 130,000 lindens was being paid towards the VWE Sim support every month, and approximately $98 a month was being raised on Patreon. That, of course, magically fucking disappeared into thin air. But the fact is, there's more than just this incident with Dante. I personally bid on and won the custom entrance and lights, which I believe I paid for like 20k lindens, because Second Life, transaction history only goes back a few months, but I believe it was 20 to 22k. And I know for a fact that a guaranteed championship win, which, guys, we fucking know that that's like such a stupid auction item in the first place. Like, what the fuck? Sold for the same amount as maybe like, I think it was the same amount that the match with me was. I think it was around 20k. And I know this because like someone else was bidding on it, and Foxy Beth Ann was bidding on it, and we pooled together some money to bid on it for Foxy Beth Ann. Mm-hmm. And so that, we honored whatever we could from the auction after Seth had left. And that guaranteed championship ended up taking place under mine and Viola's management. So if you're seeing a trend here, the 20k, for that disappeared too. Let's just say for a second, let's forget for like a moment, like about my belief that money was unlawfully being taken from VWE. Let's just say, because, all it takes is the one person to be like, well, there's not enough evidence. Let's put it aside for a second. Let's shelve it. Okay? Shelve it. 50,000 lindens was stolen from UFW. The owner of UFW has filed a fraud report to Linden Labs. Unfortunately, Linden Labs is probably not going to give a fuck. So as a community, it really is up to us to look closely at behavior that is not acceptable. And this is what I mean when I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care if you fucking hate me. I don't care if you call this petty drama or whatever. I don't care. I'm not doing this because of my personal belief towards any individual. I have no intention of trying to drag someone's personality through the mud, as toxic as I may believe them to be. It's not my job, and it's not my business. What I am saying is 50,000 lindens was stolen, and people in this community are allowing this person to come back in and reap more benefits from the community without ever being held accountable. There has been a zero attempt at accountability. I think it's so fucked up that you can allow someone who has stolen money. This is not a game. Lindens convert to real life money. Someone who is a creator like me knows this. Someone who has stolen money from another Fed in our community, and you think it's acceptable to allow this person to come in, collaborate, contribute, and even participate in charity events, fucking charity events. I had to back out of sponsoring a charity event for the Trevor Project, which is a cause that I have personally raised over $1,000 for. I had to back out because this charity event was being held in a space that allowed Seth Cameron to sponsor and participate in. Can we put this, the two of you, can we put this under a fucking microscope real quick? If you were running a charity event, a person with a fraud report who has stolen money, would you think it's a fucking smart idea to allow them to be anywhere near a charity event? I don't give a fuck how far away from the money he was. I don't care if he was the sponsor. I don't care. It's fucked up. It's fucked up.
Especially when the person is clearly trying to not be in the center of attention or be in the spotlight, and they're just like in the background, kind of hiding. Still not speaking to anyone, still having everyone blocked, and still not being mentioned when it's a hush thing.
No accountability.
That's always shady. That's
So,
always shady when the person is not even on the map.
yeah. So I'm just genuinely asking. I'd like to clarify. I do not mean any bad intent on any wrestlers or general participants in this scenario. You know, this is not Fed bashing. I like people from, Feds that are sort of involved in this.
Yep.
Everyone knows I make my own contributions to the community with animations and whatever. And everybody knows that I treat anyone from any Fed the exact same. People that are in VWE and also in another Fed, I treat them exactly the same. And I personally, I would love to spend more time outside of, the VWE bubble, but these choices, man, make it very hard to offer my support. So for the talent, like, this is not your battle. This is not your problem. My problem is with any individuals who openly allow a person who has scammed money to walk back in without accepting any accountability. It is your responsibility. Do you not fucking understand that? Because to me, it's not fucking rocket science. You cater to this community, you rely on this community, you benefit from this community, you take absolutely no fucking accountability for the fact that money was stolen from your community. This is your responsibility, so fucking deal with it like adults. And for the last time, this is not petty drama, this is real money. If every individual who paid for fucking something from one of these auctions either did not get the product or their money, if every single one of those individuals receive a refund, this will no longer be a problem for me, because I'm not interested in creating a problem with someone on a personal level, no matter how I feel about them. It is just not fair that there's no accountability being taken for money being stolen. It's not that fucking hard. So if you listen to this and your first thought is to think, fuck that guy, or I hate Morgan Jones, what fucking part of your fucking frontal lobe, your fucking temporal lobe is malfunctioning? Because what I am saying here is not unreasonable. I just want accountability. I want people to get back what they are owed. This is money from a fucking Fed in your community. So fucking deal with it. Do you two have anything you'd like to add?
I think you said it for all of us. But just to add to this point, in the sense of auctions and stuff, we have held an auction since in the VWE at Wrestle Series, and people who have orders from Fight. We've had people that, yes, orders do take long. I mean, it's only me and Mikey that are meshing stuff, and we do keep open dialogue between the people, and it's not our job to chase you after stuff at the end of the day. But at the same time, we've had a person come to us and be like, oh, this is taking too long, and we've refunded the amount fully 100%, and we've done it. And that's what should be done in cases like this.
Yeah.
And just a little preface, if anyone has an order from the past Wrestle Series that we haven't fulfilled, please message myself, James Silvius, on Second Life, and we'll get it sorted. Like, that's the thing. We don't chase you at the end of the day, but at the same time, we're not scamming.
Yeah, they're good dudes. They're
open
good dudes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, a refund is the bare minimum. It's the bare minimum. If you're not going to get your product, they'll give you a refund. And that's how anything should work.
Yep.
And this is not, by the way, like the whole, Seth taking 50,000 lindens is not like, Mo, how long did it take you to get your custom title that you paid
Yeah.
God knows how long for?
I think it was 2017 Beach Brawl. I paid, how much did I pay? I think like
It was,
50,000 lindens,
yeah,
something
a
around that.
ridiculous amount.
Yeah, a ridiculous amount. And well, we mentioned him. Seth had promised to get me that title. We've spoken about it. Literally the month after we spoke about it, he gave me some ideas. He gave me a mock-up of the design, but I didn't get it until like 2020 or 2019. So that was 2 to 3 years. And the only reason I did get it was because I asked for a fucking refund. I asked for a refund, being like, I've waited 2 fucking years. I shouldn't have waited 2 years, you know? It's not the right thing to do. But then I asked for a refund and he was like, oh no, I'll get it to you. Don't worry. And I still had to wait another few months. And only then did I get it. And I only wanted that custom title because of Christina at the time, to get a custom like Christina Krovac title and kind of make it a big deal. But I only had gotten that after losing the title again like 2 times and then winning it on my last run as Christina. So you can put that into perspective.
Yeah.
I don't win. Like Christina didn't win the title every year. It was like years apart, and I only got it on my like 5th title reign when I had ordered it probably on my 1st or 2nd.
Do you
So
see what
yeah.
we mean? Like, we are not asking for much. We are asking for below the bare minimum. Okay? That's it. Hold people fucking accountable for their shit. Because we're tired. We're tired old bitches. And it's just not fair. It's just not fair, guys, right?
Yep.
Well, I also ordered a what are they called? They're little toys. The figures, the bank figures,
Oh
right?
Yeah.
yeah.
I ordered a custom one for Isabel Martinez, right?
Oh
Years
yeah, I
ago
remember.
when, um, and I never got it till now. I completely forgot about it until now, to be
Didn't we?
honest.
Didn't we also get Abdullah the goat triple
The
pack?
goat, yeah, the goat. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, we never got that too.
we never got that too. The goat triple pack, the custom Funko Pops or whatever
Yeah.
bang, whatever they call them.
Yeah.
Um,
Real
yeah, we
quick
never
to
got those
to
two.
the neck beard like sitting in your basement right now, like, and you're thinking like, oh, that's two incidents. I speculate there's more than just two of these incidents that they're remembering at this
Mm.
moment. It has a long fucking history, and I could do a fucking whole hour of this podcast talking about what I feel like was going on. It's not crazy. Trust me that they are realizing now that they didn't get what they bought years ago. It's on brand, in fact.
And if anything screams shadiness or whatever, for someone to, for when he threw the Fed on you, to leave everything and then put on his Second Life profile, the first page in his Second Life profile, any auction items, contact
Yeah.
Morgan Jones,
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
who
something
had
that you
nothing
weren't
to do.
involved in at
I
all.
was not
Nothing to
involved
no
in.
meshing, no nothing.
I
If it
actually
was
had
your
been
move,
involved in those
fine.
auctions, and I had delivered every animation that I was, supposed to
Yeah.
deliver for that auction.
Mhm.
And what I need you all to know as well, it's really fucked up that him and I were supposed to be good friends, and I had gotten out of the hospital that day. My friends have seen incoherent texts from me because I was under anesthesia. So I got home and I had this shitstorm unloaded on me. The Fed was dropped into my lap. I did not ask for it. Titles were withheld, titles that belonged to VWE, money was withheld. And this is stuff that I can all fucking talk about all day, but I don't want to distract you from the fact that there is proof that 50,000 lindens was stolen from UFW. Everything else that I'm saying, you can call it speculation, but here's your fucking fact, right? 50K. Someone's whoever, if you're fucking dealing with Seth and you're allowing him in this community, you're allowing him to reap more benefits from this community, then I expect you to pay Dante 50 fucking K. And you know what? I'll take my 20K as well, while you're at it, but at least pay Dante's fucking 50K, okay? And make fucking better choices, people. You're hurting your wrestlers in your Fed because people don't want to show up because of who you're associating with. For a good fucking reason. It's not because we don't like him because he, called me and I was gonna say the F slur, but I'm gay. I can make that joke. Blah 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 blah. But that's all it is. I don't need to say any more about it.
Yep.
Lighter topics will be shared, okay, on this podcast. This is not a trend. I did not make the podcast just for this. Trust me. There's a lot planned. We're gonna have some guests, and like one of my big things going forward is I'm going to make more of an attempt to come to other feds to like watch shows and stuff. And I truly I'm not gonna get on here and shit talk you. Like I what I hope is that I'm able to be surprised and like pick out things that I like from other feds, and then I can, you know, talk about them. It's not, doesn't have to be shit talk. You know what I mean? Again, this is not a drama podcast, and what I just said, what everything that just happened was said, it's not drama. That's the problem. It's fact, and it's real, and it's fucking crime. And that's it. I think that that should conclude us for the day. Thank you for, you know, coming on and listening to, you know, we talked about a lot, and then of course you heard me yell, so I'm sure you had a good time.
Great time. I loved it.
Yeah, it was super fun.
All right, we're out.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Audacity. Audacity. That's the term of the day, pertaining to a way a kind of person behaves. A description. How would you word it? Maybe it's guts or just being assertive. You can spot them in any walk of life, from the prophet type to your boss or wife. And maybe they're vain and plain narcissistic, but equipped with enough heart to risk it. Coming across a bit bold and arrogant, but when they leave, we want to know where they went, so we can cry. The nerve of that guy. But with envy, cause we're uncertain and shy. Just wishing to succeed, we run for the well while he's